YouTube, what's happening? It is Tuesday, July 2nd. As you can see, we got a full slate of baseball again today. Look, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't, because you can see yesterday I went a little wild. Only 3 games, had 6 bets. That's unlike me. I bet a Yerfie. Yes runs first inning. And of course, what happens, almost every other inning had the runs. So it happens. The only thing that matters is that season unit total. This one right here is all that matters. We want that to keep growing. We want that to hit 80, 90, 100 units for the season, because we're trying to build our bankroll for football season coming up in 2 months. We're in the dog days of baseball. We got 2 months of baseball left, so before football starts, obviously. So the best way to do that is to be able to give you the best statistical information possible. And look, I have been spending weeks trying to do this. I've been trying to build a model, a database for props. I've been trying my hardest. Look, I'm good with Excel and Google Sheets. I'm not that good. I can do this model, but I can't do props. So I partnered with a company called Outlier because I use their software. I dug around in it, and you can see, here's a sample of it. It looks amazing. This way now, when we talk about pitcher props, I can actually show you the props. I can say, look, Cutter Crawford strikeouts are 5.5 right now. And you can see this is what it at these books. And you can see what the alt lines are going to be. So we have all these things we can talk about now. We can show statistical data, we can show numbers, and we can show everything that I want to show on the screen, because I like showing data. You like seeing data. This is a win-win for both of us. Outlier was cool. They hooked me up with an affiliate link. It's in the description. Click on it down below. Check it out. Let me know what you think. This is what we're going to use going forward for every pitcher props. That way we can discuss and see what we can do to find the best value, the best numbers. And so hopefully we can win more money. So anyways, moving forward, we have 15 games to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump to that first one right now. First up, we got Boston and Miami. We got Crawford 3-7 with a 3.59 up against Belozo, who's only pitched 5 innings. So let's be honest, not many stats. Nerfy is calculated by what Boston has done on the road versus what Miami has done at home. These are just stats of what they've done in the Nerfy first inning, not giving up any runs. You combine the time those together, that's how you get the probability. 54.07% is red. We're not going to talk about pass on that. Odds, we can see Boston's a pretty hefty favorite on the road. 8.5s across the board for your total. Looking at the bats, we see that they're not that good. 27th for 2.3 for Boston. 23rd for 3 on the runs for Miami. Not great, no big advantage. 227 batting for Boston. 214 batting for Miami. Again, not that good. And you can see strikeout 7.3 and 9. So like I said in the beginning, we finally get to talk about, props. So let's look at the pitcher first. 3.59 with a 1.14. You can see what he does. He gives up some runs, but he's facing Miami. Miami, you can see, is not that great with the bats. So I don't really, do I think he gives up runs? He might give up a couple, sure. So, but his strikeout 7, 9, 8. He's striking out some beast teams. Let's be honest. These teams are good. Look at the names. They're good teams overall. So we pop over to Outlier. This stuff's amazing. I'm so excited we have this now. And I can show what he's done on his strikeouts. You can see his last 2 games, 7 against Cincinnati, 9 against the Yankees, 8 against Philly. He had 5 and 5. His number's 5.5. So he's striking out these teams. He averages around 6. His median 6, averages 5.94. His 5.5 is the number. I'm going to take his over strikeouts. Now, earned runs is at 1.5. This is enticing, but let's remember, Miami's not good with the bats. So I am more inclined to think he strikes out more than giving up runs. I think he might have his first great game. Miami's offense is terrible, because you got to remember, look who he's faced. Cincinnati, pretty hot team. Yankees, they have offense. Philly, let's be honest, top 3 offense all month. Braves are, they're kind of cold, but then they have spurts where they just blow up. So Baltimore, beast team. Milwaukee, beast team. St. Louis, pretty decent team. So he's been going up against beasts. So I'm going to take his over of strikeouts here at 5.5, because I like these numbers here. I'm not going to touch his earned run because that looks enticing. We're going to pass on that one. Let's pop over to his counterpart, Mr. Belozo here. He doesn't have any stats. So he's had 1 great game against Kansas City, but I need more stats than that. So, and just because I'm sure people want to know, his strikeouts are at 3.5. His earned runs are at 2.5. So you can see he had nothing against KC. So overall, the only thing I'm even looking at, I don't want to take a money line this one. I don't trust the offenses at all. I don't trust the pitcher from Miami. I don't want to take the side. I'm not going to take a total. The only thing I'm going to take is Cutter Crawford over 5.5 strikeouts and move to the next one. First up, Chicago and Cleveland. Flexing 2-7 with a 5.13 against Carrasco, 3-6 with a 5.27. Nerfy 54%. Not with these two pitchers. That's a hard pass. Odds, we have Cleveland pretty decent favorite at home. We got some 200s out there. Totals 9.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, Chicago 6.7 for their last 3 for 6, 273 for 9th, and 8.3 strikeouts for 14th. Not bad numbers, but they face Colorado. Take that with a grain of salt. Cleveland, 4 runs for 15th, batting 250 for 12th. But the strikeouts is the issue here. They've been swinging a lot and missing. 11 strikeouts a game for 27 their last 3. That's bottom 3 in the majors. You don't want to be there. So we are going to look at flex and strikeouts. It's a weird one to look at, but we're going to do it. So pop over to pitching. Let's start with Carrasco. 5.27 to 1.4. You see what he does. He has faced the White Sox. He had 6, 5, and then 3 earned back in May 10th. So almost 2 months ago now. So we don't really want to count that. We want to see what he's done recently. He's a couple games of 5. He's more prone to give up 5 just as well as he is to give up 2. So he could be either way. So in going up against the White Sox, a game he's already faced once, a team he's faced once, gave up 3 runs then, I expect him to give up about 3 runs. So if we pop over the outlier for Carrasco, we see his earned runs is over 2.5. Do I want to take this? I'm going to lay off it because Chicago's numbers look good, but I think they're inflated because they face Colorado. So we're going to pass on those. Pop back over to pitchers and look at Flexen. You can see what he's done. The main thing we want to see here is how has he done strikeout wise. 3, 6, 2, 3, 4. Like I said, let's look at the numbers. We pop over to his outlier. We see for strikeouts, his number's at 3.5 right now. He has hit this 60% of the time in the last 10 games. And we see that Cleveland is swinging at everything and missing. So I'm going to be taking his over strikeout prop of 3.5. Now back to the actual game. We see the teams. I think they're closer to even than you would say. The stats say a certain thing, but I want to see what Chicago does when they're not playing Colorado. That's what I want to see. Cleveland, I think, is still I don't think we know Cleveland's the better team. So, but do you really want to put minus 200 or anything? I personally don't, because the last time Cleveland and Chicago played with Carrasco pitching, they lost. So I'm going to lay off that. We're not going to take a total. The only thing we're going to do is flexing over 3.5 strikeouts and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got St. Louis and Pitt. We got Gibson 5-3 with a 3.7 up against Keller 9-4 with a 3.2. Nerfy is at 58.6. With these pitchers, we might look at that a little closer. Odds first, Pittsburgh slightly favored at home, 8.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, they're pretty cold. 2.3 for 204 average for St. Louis in their last 3. Pittsburgh is 2 runs, which is last, and 186, which is 28th. But the main concerns are strikeouts. Again, 11.7 for 27. Pittsburgh, terrible in these categories. St. Louis, slightly terrible. So they're both not doing too good. So under is in play. Nerfy is in play. Let's look at the pitchers and see if we want to take either of those. Pitching, we see Gibson. We see he gives up some runs occasionally, which most pitchers do, let's be honest. He hasn't been rocked. His worst game was Atlanta, his last game, and then 5 against Boston almost 2 months ago. So if he's only giving up a handful of runs, that's okay. That's what you expect out of pitchers in 2024. His strikeouts we want to look at because of how poorly Pittsburgh is doing. We see 4, 6, 7, 8. So he does strike out some. So we are going to pop over to outlier here and look at his strikeouts. We see the numbers 4.5 right now, and he does pretty decently. He's 60% in his last 10. I like to see that. Seeing that Pittsburgh is doing so poorly when it comes to swinging the bat, I am going to take his over 4.5 strikeout prop. I'm going to do that. Popping back to Keller. I don't know if there's anything I really want to take on his props here, to be honest. He doesn't give up that many runs. He's kind of a roller coaster. He kind of gives us some hits, but that's up and down. He gave up 8 to St. Louis, but that was the most. I don't know if he does that again, so I'm going to pass on his props completely. Looking back at the bats, we see they're just ice cold. We see Keller has the potential to throw a gem. We know Gibson has the potential to throw a gem. So we got 2 pitchers that have the potential to do good. We have the odds at 8.5 on the over under. I'm going to take that under 8.5 as well. The Nerfy, who I am going to, let's do it. We only had 3 games yesterday. I'm going to be a little more adventurous going forward. We're going to take the Nerfy as well. So for this one, I'm going to take the Nerfy, the under 8.5, and Gibson for over 4.5K and move on to the next one. All right, next up, Mets and Nationals. Manea 5-3 with a 3.89 up against Hers 1-2 with a 5.48. Nerfy is 52%. Probably not taking that with these pitchers, let's be honest. Looking at the odds, we see that the Mets are slightly favored on the road. Total are 9.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, we see the Mets seem to be pretty hot with the bats still. 6.7 runs in their last 3 for 6, batting 239, which is only 16th, middle of the road. 10.3 strikeouts are 24th. That's a little high there. Washington, 5 runs a game for 13th, batting 250 for 12th, and 8.7 strikeouts. So they're middle of the road in all the categories. The only thing stands out, the Mets are scoring runs, but they are striking out a lot. So let's head over to the pitchers. Let's start with the Mets. Manea out there, 3.89 with a 1.30 whip. You can see has not faced Washington, but he is prone to give up some runs, but then he's had a couple gems. Since then, he's been pretty decently. Hers, on the other hand, has only pitched 5 games this season. Has faced the Mets in his first one, gave up 7 hits and 4 earned, 4-2, 6-inning gem against Miami with those 13 strikeouts. Beautiful game. 7-3, 6-4. So you see what he does. He gives up runs. He has potential to strike people out, but he only got 1 strikeout in his last one. He pitched 3 innings, only pitched 3 innings against him. So Washington's doing funky things with him. So we don't know exactly how many pitches he's going to throw, because throwing 66 pitches, going to pull 76. It seems like they're trying to limit him a little bit. So taking props on him is going to be kind of rough. We'll look at him, though. We can pop over real quick. So we can see his Ks are at 4.5. I mean, he's only hit that. He's hit that 3 out of 5 times, but barely. We can see his earned runs over 2.5. He's hit that 3 out of 5 times. So you're facing the Mets. That might be worth some take, because the only issue is how many pitches is he going to throw? How long is he going to be in the game? He is facing the Mets offense, who is, as we saw, is pretty hot right now. So on his stats, that's what they are. Looking at Manea, do we think he can give up runs? That's the question, because the Nationals aren't that hot. He has been pitching pretty well, let's be honest here. So for the odds, I'm going to take New York on the money line. I got to, because Hers isn't doing as great as we thought he was. Everyone thought he was going to be, crochet with his 13 Ks, and then he's been so I'm taking Mets on the money line for sure. I think I want to take the Hers over. No, I'm going to argue with myself. We're going to lay off it. There's just too many. We don't know how much he's going to pitch, so we'll lay off the stats there. Manea strikeouts, you can see what he's done this year. He's about middle of the road. He's 50% in his last 10, 50% in his last 20. He's up and down. His number's 4.5. So I'm not taking that. I don't think he gives up many earned runs to Washington, but then again, you see he has peaks and valleys. So I'm going to lay off his props too. The only thing I'm really liking in this one is the Mets money line. So I'll take the Mets money line. We're going to leave the total alone. We're going to leave props alone. Mets money line, next game. Next up, Cincinnati in New York. Ashcraft 4-4 with a 5.45 up against Gill 9-3 with a 3.15. Nerfy 44%. We'll look to see if the numbers match up for it. For the odds, we see Yankees are 200 money line out there. The totals are 8.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, we see why. Cincinnati is ice cold. Yankees are quite hot right now. Yankees are getting 9 runs a game. That's first in the majors in the last 3. Batting 328, which is also first, but they are striking out some, 22nd. So that's something to look at. Maybe look at some Ashcraft strikeouts. 3 runs for 23rd for Cincy, batting 190 for 27th, and only striking out 9 times. So middle of the road there. So the things that stand out is Yankees have the massive advantage when it comes to the offense. Looking over at the pitching, we got Gill going out there, has not faced Cincy, but you can see he hasn't been good in his last couple games. Dude's been getting up runs. He gets to face Cincy now, who, as you see, 23rd in runs and 27th in batting average. That's going to help him out a little bit, I think. Looking over at Ashcraft, we said we were going to look at the strikeouts. He hasn't faced the Yankees, but 3-2, 4-3, 5-3. I don't even know if his props we're looking at. I mean, we could take a peek at it, I guess. His strikeout prop is currently 3.5. That's his number. You can see that's not good enough. I'm going to pass on that. And then his earned runs, because he has faced the Yankees, is 2.5, and he's given up runs. 6, 4, 3, 5, 3, 3, 3. That's what I like. I like to see that. You're facing the number one offense and you held your numbers at 2.5. I'm going to take over 2.5 Ashcraft all day on this one. That's a fact. So popping back over to Gill, we can look at Gill's also. We can see his last 10 on the earned runs, his strikeouts. He's not done well in strikeouts either. His earned runs, not, I mean, 1.5. I can't do that. It's too low. I can't do that. Sorry. So the only thing we're going to do is we're going to take the Ashcraft's earned runs over 2.5 Ashcraft earned runs. And then on the odds, do I want to take a 200 Yankees? I don't know. I don't think I will. I think I don't. I mean, decisions, aren't they? So I think, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the 200 alone. I'm gonna take a run line. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna run line Yankees in this one. -1.5 on the run line. Take Ashcraft over 2.5 earned runs allowed and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got the food matchup, Houston, Toronto. We got Arrighetti Spaghetti. It's 4-6 against 5-6-8 up against Barrio Cheerio, 7-6 with his 3-3-8. Nerfies is 61% based on what they've done this year. We'll look a little deeper in the pictures. Odds, we see that Toronto's a slight favorite at home, 8.5 mainly across the board. Looking at the bats, Houston 7.3 runs their last 3 per second while batting 264, but their last game they only batted 133. 8 strikeouts in their last 3 for 12. So Houston's doing pretty well, but they did have their last game was rough. Toronto 3.7 their last 3 for 18th, 224 for 19th. They had a rough game too. They're striking out 9 times. So Houston in the last few games has the advantage, but both teams' last game was terrible. So looking at the pitching, we start with Arrighetti. You see, he had a beast of a game against Colorado, had 10 strikeouts. Has not faced Toronto, but you can see he got rocked by Detroit. He's had some great games outside of that. I would say overall he's a pretty good pitcher. Barry, on the other hand, 3.38 with a 1.11. You can see he has not faced Houston, but gives up some runs here and there. So looking at their props, because that's what we do now. We have props to look at. I want to look at his earned runs. His total's at 2.5. He's facing Houston, who 7.3 runs for second in the majors while batting 264. That's something worth looking at. Last 10, he's given up. That's iffy. That's iffy. That's iffy. Strikeout wise, nothing. I'm not looking at that either. Arrighetti, on the other hand, we see on his strikeouts, he had 10 in his last game. His number is 4.5, but we can see that Toronto is only striking out 9 times a game. That's not, I don't really want to go with that either. So to me, none of the props are really standing out. Looking at the bats, we see Houston has a slight advantage. The odds are Toronto slightly favored. To me, nothing is really standing out in this game. There's no prop standing out. The Nerfy's not standing out. The total's not standing out. Nothing's standing out. So I'm just going to pass completely on this game and move to the next one. Next up, we got San Fran and Atlanta. We got Birdsong, 4.2 innings, 5.79 ERA up against the beast of Lopez, 6.2 with a 1.7 ERA and a 1.1 whip. Nerfy's 47.6. We'll look at it based on the pitchers. Odds, we see that Atlanta is a hefty favorite at home, 8.5s across the board with the total. Bats, though, San Fran is on fire. Second in the majors in both runs and batting average behind the Yankees, 7.3 and 322 average while only striking out 7 times. Atlanta, on the other hand, is where they've been all month of June, in the bottom half of the majors in runs at 3.3 for 20th, 242 bats for 15th, and only striking out 9.7. So Atlanta is where they are, bottom half. San Fran's on fire like they were a month ago. They're back to being that level again. So we have to look at the pitchers. We know Lopez is a beast, let's be honest. 1.7, look at his games. Hasn't faced San Fran, but let's be honest, dude's a monster. Now he's facing the number 2 offense in the majors and barely number 2. Because San Fran is on fire right now. So Birdsong, on the other hand, he's only played 1 game, 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned against Chicago. Nothing. I need more stats. We need more than a 1-game sample. We need at least 2 or 3 to see what he's probably inclined to do. So with the way the bats are, we know Atlanta has a massive pitching advantage. But San Fran's not striking out much, so I don't want to look at his strikeout props. I don't know. This is a battle of beasts. We have a beast offense and a beast pitcher. I don't want to take his earned runs. They're set at 2.5. I think they're 2.5. Let me take a look. Yeah, 2.5. Yeah, he's hit under a lot, but he's facing the number 2 offense. That scares me away a little bit. So Birdsong, we know nothing about, so it's hard to do any props with him at all. So with the odds being where they are, the bats being where they are, everything is canceling out. I don't trust anything. So this game is also going to be a pass. Next game. All right, next up, we got Detroit and Minnesota. Scooble, 9-3 with a 2-3-2 up against Simeon Woods Richardson. 3-1 with a 3-4-1. Nerfy 41.7. We'll look at that. With these pictures, we'll definitely look at the Nerfy. Looking at the odds, we see Pick'em / Detroit slightly favored. 7.5 across the board for your total. Looking at the bats, we see 4.7 versus 4 on the runs. They're both middle of the road. 172 batting for Detroit in the last 3 is not good. That's 29th in the majors. 159 for the past week. That's 30th in the majors. They did decent their last game. They got 235, but still overall they're bottom of the majors when it comes to batting average. Minnesota is 229 in their last 3 for 17th. They were top 5 for the last 2 weeks and week, but they've slowly came back to earth a little bit. Strikeout 6.7 versus 7.3, no real advantage. So the only thing that's really standing out here is that Detroit's batting average in the last week has not been good. So we might want to look at Woods Richardson's hits allowed and see what he does there. So let's do that. Let's pop over there. Woods, we see his recent games. He has not faced Detroit, but you can see 4-4, 6, 3. He doesn't give up hits. Dude is a beast. He's probably one of the beasts that nobody really talking about. He does give up some runs. Let's be honest. He gives us some runs, but you're going to earn them. You got to earn those runs. So his counterpart, Scooble, he's 232 with a .94. Has not faced Minnesota, but you can see he had 2 rough games, and then I foolishly went against our sweet prince here and said, oh, I'm going to take Philly against him, and then he shut Philly down. So yeah, do what you can with that. So outside of that, let's look at some props here. Let's start with Scoobball here on the props. You can see for strikeouts, he's hitting over in 9 out of 10 games. Minnesota striking out 7.3 in their last 3. The number's 5.5. That might be, that's probably worth looking at. You know what? Minnesota is 8th. Yeah, we'll do that. We're going to take over 5.5 strikeouts for Screwball. Woods Richardson's props here. We can see, I wanted to look at hits. That's the main thing you can see here. His number's 4.5. We're going to go under 4.5 hits because you can see we're fading the Detroit batting average. That's all we're doing here. So we're going to take Scooble over strikeouts. We're going to take Woods under hits. Let's look at the actual game itself. The odds are a pick 'em. With these 2 pitchers, it's so hard. Scooble's a beast. Woods Richardson's a beast himself. It's hard to pick. Both bats are pretty equal outside of Detroit's batting average, so we're going to lay off a side. Total 7.5. With these 2 pitchers, I don't know if we can hit the over in this one, but under 7.5 is not something I want to play. So I already got 2 prop picks in this one, so we'll just take those 2 props. We'll take the Woods Richardson under 4.5 hits, and we'll take over Scoobball 5.5 strikeouts and move on to the next game. Okay, before we get into the next one, I forgot to mention the Nerfy in the last game because I decided with these 2 pitchers, looking over at this screen here, we can see the Nerfy was 41, but with both these pitchers going up against each other, yeah, I'm going to throw the Nerfy in there as well in this game. So Detroit, Minnesota, Nerfy, just because teams are middle of the road and Detroit struggling. We'll take that, Nerfy in that one. Let's move back to the actual game today. Philly and Chicago. Mercado's only pitched 1 inning. Wesneski, 45 innings, 3.6. You can see what he has here. The odds, Cubs slightly favored at home, 9.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, we see 3.7 for Philly for 18th, while batting 268 for 10th. They're doing better. They're adjusting to their stars being out. I give them that. Cubs 2.7 for 26 while batting 167. They batted .069 in their last game. Terrible, awful. So advantage Philly if you want to bet Philly, who's missing stars. Enjoy. Pitching matchup on the other hand, Mercado's going out there for Philly. He has 1 inning against Detroit on the 24th. That's all he's done. So we know nothing. Wisniewski, you can see, is a bullpen guy. So we just don't know what the hell is going to happen for the pitching today in this game. So with that alone, with these 2 pitchers, and on top of it, we have Philly missing stars and the Cubs doing poorly. Who knows what could happen in this game? So for me, this game is going to be a complete pass and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got San Diego and Texas. We got Cease with a 7-6 with a 3.84 up against Evaldi 4-3 with a 3.45. Nerfy 48.3 with these pitchers, probably not. Looking at the odds, it's pretty much a pick 'em. 7.5 across the board with the total. Looking at the bats, they're both pretty hot. 7 runs a game for the last 3 for San Diego for 4th in the majors. Texas, 5.7 runs a game to the last 3 for 9th. 316 batting for San Diego for 4th. Texas, middle of the road, 243, not bad. 6.3 versus 6.7. Both teams top 4 in not striking out. That's what you like to see from the offenses. So both San Diego's on fire, and Texas is pretty worn themselves. So we have, the bats are in charge here. Looking at the pitching, we see Cease is going out here. He had a gem against Washington. Yeah, I give him that. Outside of that, it's 4, 7, 1, 3, 3, 4. He's prone to give up runs. That's what he does. Looking at his counterpart, Evaldi here, you can see he is prone to give up runs. Again, there it is. Milwaukee somehow always does this, like 9-5-5. If you see a big stat like that, you're going to see Milwaukee next to it. I don't know why. They just pop up so many times. 4-2, 4-4, 5-2. He gives up runs too. So the first thing I'm seeing is we have 2 pitchers that are prone to give up runs. We have 2 teams that are pretty hot offensively, and the total 7.5. Why? I don't know why. I don't care why. I'm taking the over. Over 7.5, 10 days out of 10 days a week, all day in this one. But now we want to see are there any props we want to look at. So with these strikeout props, the way these pitchers are going, we don't want to look at strikeout props. Can't do it. I don't like taking under in props. I don't know why. I just don't. It's like rooting for nothing. I hate doing it. So even betting unders in games just makes me feel weird. I hate it. So we're not going to do an under prop in this one. We're going to leave it alone. We will look at the earn run props though. So let's pop on over to Outlier, and we have earned runs for Evaldi. We can see he's only hit the over 4 out of his last 10 times. So that's not really worth in my mind going for. 2.5 though, that is a nice number. And Cease on the other hand, you can see his number. Oh, I was about to say 6.5 is crazy. So both pitchers have a 2.5 on their earned runs. I'm gonna leave both of those alone. They both have shown that Evaldi, his bet, he can do 1 and 2 games easily. 2.5. I know these offenses are hot, but really, I'm just going to take the over in this one, 7.5, be a little more conservative, sit back, relax, hope for 8 total runs, and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Tampa and Kansas City. We got Lytle with a 2.5 and a 3.86 up against Singer 4-4 with a 3.12. Nerfy 40.2 based on what they've done this year. The Yerfy's highlighted in this one, but with these pitchers, probably pass on that. Looking at the odds, we see KC is slightly favored at home. Totals are 9.5 across the board. The bats, KC I would say decently favored on the offense. 3 runs a game for 23rd for Tampa, their last 3, while batting 220, which is 20th, and striking out 8.7, which is 15th. KC 6 runs a game for 8th, 309 average for 5th, and only striking out 6.3, which is the best in the majors. So we're not looking at strikeout props for these teams. KC, you can see, is better offensively. Now let's look at the pitching and see if that matters much at all. We see Singer has faced Tampa, went 4-2-1 back in May. That's a month and a week ago. Might be too far back. He got rocked against the Yankees, but other than that, he's been pretty good his last 2 games, given it was Miami. Grain of salt here, Miami. 3-1 against Texas is actually more impressive. 5-3 against the Dodgers. 9-2 against Cleveland. That's a lot of hits, but only 2 runs, so that's what matters, those runs. Light, on the other hand, more prone to give up runs. 2-2, 6-3, 3-3-2. You see what you get here. So to me, the pitchers are close. They're very close, but I would still give Singer the nod slightly in this one. And batting, we give Kansas City the nod based on their recent games, and the money line gives them a slight nod too. So I'll do that. I'll take KC on the money line. We're not going to take a total. We're not even going to look at any props because nothing is really standing out for this one. So we're going to pass completely on those total. Just take KC money line and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got Milwaukee and Colorado. Kuchel, 4 innings, 11 ERA. Feltner, 1-7 with a 6 ERA. Nervy's at 43. Yerfy's at 11. We ain't touching those today. You ain't getting me again. Looking at the odds, we see Milwaukee slightly favored on the road. Totals 11.5 across the board, just like yesterday. Bats, you got to see Milwaukee is single digits in most categories. 5.7 runs in the last 3 for 9th. 321 batting for 3rd. Meanwhile, Colorado's 5.3 for 12th. 204 batting for 23rd. So advantages Milwaukee on the bats. You got to think in this one, Colorado should be tired because back-to-back extra inning games with the White Sox in Milwaukee, but they are at home, so that does help out a lot with that. So I'll take another grain of salt in this one. Looking at the pitching, we can see he gives up runs. Let's just be honest. He does. He hasn't faced Milwaukee, but everyone outside of St. Louis is just teeing off on him. So he has one game against Texas, 8 for 5. So he gives up runs. So immediately right there, we want to look at the offense. We got pitchers to give up runs. We have a total of 11.5. I took the over 11 yesterday. I'm going to do it again. There's an 11 out there, a couple 11s out there. So we'll take the over of 11 for sure. I'm not taking a side. I don't trust either of these pitchers, but I will pop over to some props and look at some earned runs and see what their numbers are, because see if anything's standing out. So in 2024, 5, his number's 3.5. You're facing Minnesota. You're facing Colorado. I don't know if I want to take that. I'm a little skeptical of that because he only pitched one game. We know he might be better than that. Colorado might be tired. Let's be honest. They could be. So, and they're in the 20s, 204 average for 23rd. Yeah, we're going to lay off that one. Now for Feltner, his 2024 earned runs, you can see what he's given up. His number's at 3.5, and he's facing Milwaukee. Yeah, Milwaukee is 5.7 runs. They're batting 321, and your number is 3.5 in an 11.5 total game. Yeah, I'm taking over that. So over 3.5 Feltner earned runs, and we are going to take the over 11 total in the game and move on to the next game. All right, next we got the Angels and the A's. We got Soriano 4-5 with a 3.48 up against Spence 4-4 with a 4.35. Murphy 61.6 with these pitchers. Not going to be a thing we look at. Looking at the odds, it's a pick 'em across the board basically. 7.5 and 8s for your totals out there. Looking at the bats, we see LA has the advantage. 5.7 runs their last 3 for 9th, 277 batting for 7th. Meanwhile, Oakland 3.3 for 20th and 210 for 22nd. And strikeouts are both in the 20s, but Oakland is where they hang out at. Them and Seattle are always in the bottom, 12.7 strikeouts. So we will look at some strikeout props, and LA has the advantage with the bats here, as you can see. Looking at the pitching, Soriano's going out there, has not faced Oakland recently. He gives up some runs occasionally, but these are pretty good games, let's be honest. These are good numbers. His counterpart, not so much. He faced the Angels last game and got destroyed. 8 hits for 6 earned. That's not good. Those aren't good numbers. So outside of that, 2-4, 2-4. So, I mean, what are we going to expect out of him? At least 2-3 runs. He faced the Angels again. Hitters tend to have an advantage the second time you face them. So I got to lean LA in this one. So LA's got the pitching matchup advantage. They got the batting advantage. And it's a pick 'em. Yeah, it's a pick 'em. I'm taking LA on the money line. I'll tell you right now. LA money line all day. Looking at the odds, because I said we would look at some strikeout props for both these pitchers because they're both in the bottom 10. We see Soriano, his last few games here. You could see the number is 5.5 your total for your strikeouts. He's gone under that a good bit. I don't know if you want to take that against Oakland of all teams, but I mean, by all means, have fun with that. I'm going to pass on it. That's not a good enough number for me because he's only gone over 4 times. So looking at his counterpart, Spence, on the other hand, his number's 4.5. I just can't. I can't do it. We're going to lay off the props in that one. So all we're going to do in this one is we're going to take the Angels money line. We're not going to take a total. Those numbers, I don't like those. So we're not taking props. We're not taking Murphy. We're not taking totals. We're going to take Angels money line and move on. Next game. All right, next up we got Baltimore and Seattle. Rodriguez 9-3 with a 3.72 up against Kirby 7-5 with a 3.17. Murphy is 68.1. Why? Because Baltimore is on the road. Look at their road Murphy for the year. 89.47% of their road games have hit the Murphy. That number was at 98% last month. It was amazing how high it was. So they've been doing a little better scoring some runs. Seattle 76% when they're at home. That's how you get it. You multiply them together, 68%. We will look at that with the pitchers. Odds we see it's about a pick 'em, slight favorite Baltimore, 7.5 with 1.7 out there for the totals. Bats are not doing too well. 3.3 and 2.3. That's 20th and 27th in the last 3 games. 202 for Baltimore, 196 for Seattle. Both teams are struggling to hit the ball, period. 7 versus Seattle's 13th. They are 30th in the majors in strikeouts at 13 strikeouts. They only struck out 11 last game. They slightly improved, but still Seattle swings and misses a lot. So we will look at Rodriguez strikeout props. Let's start with Rodriguez here. We can see, dude, he got rocked against Houston. He had a rough game. 5-2 against Cleveland, 7-2, 2-2, 1-4. So he's more prone to give up 2 runs than he is 7 runs. So not bad numbers, but not great numbers. Kirby, on the other hand, dude's been a beast this year. 1-2-0, 1-2-1. Outside of his Washington game, he hasn't faced Baltimore, but you can see he's been pretty beast in the last few games. So I would say Seattle has a pitching advantage with these 2 pitchers, and the fact that we have that type of Nerfy, these type of numbers, and these 2 pitchers. Yes, I will take the Nerfy in this one. So Nerfy is on the list. Looking at I don't trust the side, to be honest. Neither side really stands out. With both bats struggling at this, I don't trust the side. So let's pop over some props. We want to look at strikeouts for Rodriguez against Seattle. His number's 7.5, but he's only hit over 7 twice. I know he's facing Seattle, but I can't do that. That's too high. That's too rich from my blood. If that number was a little lower, maybe, but I can't do it. I'm going to pass on it. And Kirby, you want to look at his strikeouts. Since we're here, we'll take a look at him. We'll peek over at him. And once it loads, we will be good to go. Refresh. There we go. Strikeouts right there. His number's 6.5. He's only gone over 3 times. That's not good enough either. I'm going to pass on that as well. So for me, I'm going to pass on both of those. I'm going to pass on the side. I'm going to pass on the total 7.5. I can't even do that. So the only thing I'm taking in this game, I'm going to take the Nerfy in this one. 6 quick outs and move on to the next game. All right, next up, Arizona and the Dodgers. Nelson, 5-6 with a 5.69 up against Miller, 1-1 with a 6.75. Nerfy's 42% based on what they've done, but not with these pitchers. We're not going to do it. Odds, Dodgers, hefty favor at home. Got 200s on the board. Totals are 8.5 with a 9 out there. Looking at the bats, we see Arizona 4 runs a game in their last 3 for 15th. Meanwhile, Dodgers 4th in the majors at 7 runs a game. 281 batting for Arizona, 6. Dodgers 274 for 8, so about the same on the batting side. They're both hitting the ball well. Dodgers just doing better at scoring runs. 6.3 over 7.7 on strikeouts. Neither one's really striking out much. We're not going to look at strikeout props. Looking over at the pitchers, Nelson got absolutely rocked by Minnesota in his last game. He got rocked by San Diego. Great game against the White Sox. Great game against Washington. San Fran, he faced the Dodgers back on May 22nd. You can see 5-0-0. This is after he got destroyed by Detroit and Baltimore. He gives up a lot of hits. That's the first thing I see here. So do I expect him to go 5 hits with nothing against Dodgers again? No. The Dodgers, as you see right now, are batting 8th in the majors with 7 runs a game for 4th. Yeah, we're probably going to look at his hit prop. Looking at his counterpart Miller, he hasn't done much. We don't know what he's going to do. He has 2 games back here. 2 games in June, 4 for 3, 6 for 5, 2 innings, 1 inning. We don't know. So we're going to leave Miller stuff alone completely. Nelson, we will look at. Let's look at now. Nelson hits in his last 10. You can see he hits 10, 6, 6, 6, 5, 11, 10, 8, 2. Yeah, the number's 5.5. I think he can hit over that. The Dodgers are doing pretty hot right now. We'll take over 5.5 Nelson hits allowed. On the odds, I don't trust the Dodgers at -200. Let's be honest. Yeah, the runs are doing slightly better in, but the pitching's weird. The batting averages are close. I don't trust a Nerfy. I don't trust 8.5. I don't know if the totals are going to hit. So for me, the only thing I'm going to take is this. We're just going to take Nelson over 5.5 hits allowed and call it a day. All right, that's it. All 15 games broken down, given now. We added props to the mix now, so we have more options for bets. Overall, great. If you like what you saw when it comes to the props or outlier, check out the link in the description. It helps me out a little bit. They're awesome to work with, and you can see they put out an awesome product. So we're going to be using that going forward. I'm excited for that. So a quick rundown for the ones that like the rundowns. I have it right here. Oh, too big. Go small. Here we go. For Boston, Miami, we're going to go with Cutter Crawford over 5.5 strikeouts. White Sox and Cleveland, we're going to go Flexen over 3.5 strikeouts. St. Louis and Pitt, we got a few. We're going to take the Nerfy, we're going to take the under 8.5, and we're going to take Gibson over 4.5 strikeouts. Mets in Washington, we're going to take the Mets money line. Cincinnati and New York, we're going to take the Yankees on the run line, which is -1.5. And we're going to take Ashcraft over 2.5 earned runs allowed. Houston, Toronto is going to be a pass completely. San Fran, Atlanta is going to be a pass completely. Detroit, Minnesota, we got a few. We're going to take the Nerfy. We're going to take Scooball over 5.5 strikeouts, and we're going to take Woods Richardson under 4.5 hits. Philly and Chicago Cubs are going to be a pass. San Diego and Texas over 7.5 on the total. Tampa Bay, Kansas City, we're taking Kansas City money line. Milwaukee, Colorado, we're going to take over of 11 again, and we're going to take Feltner over 3.5 earned runs allowed. LA and Oakland, we're going to take the Angels on the money line. Baltimore and Seattle, all we're taking is the Nerfy in that one. No runs, first inning. Arizona and the Dodgers, we're going to take Nelson over 5.5 hits allowed. So that's it. Drop comments below. Let me know who you're taking today. Let me know what you think about the outlier edition. How does it flow? Give me suggestions on more things to add. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.